Captain to bridge.
Spock here.
Any signs of life?
Negative.
Have you tried all hailing frequencies?
Affirmative. No answer from the cube.
Have the department heads meet me on the bridge.
Robocop. Who is he? What is he? Where does he come from? He is OCP's newest soldier in their revolutionary crime management program. OCP spokesman claimed that the fearless machine has crooks on the run in old Detroit.
What are your prime directives?
Serve the public trust, protect the innocent, uphold the law.
TSR 66, cartridge-driven taser pistol. Each projectile releases up to 200,000 volts. It can stun, it can kill, and it's nasty shit. Your armor, state-of-the-art but not invulnerable. 50 caliber or larger can penetrate and kill. Multiple hits, and guess who ends up in the recycling bin? If you sense you need a weapon or are threatened, the visor goes down and the system makes the weapons available. You gotta remember, it's not the weapons that count. It's who's handling them. Or, in your case, what?
You're gonna be a bad motherfucker.
Hey guys, what's going on? You are listening to ThisWeekInGeek.net's Future Imperfect, the show where we look at sci-fi, television, movies, properties, franchises, and occasionally stuff involving actual science, stuff that actually happens. But on this edition of the show, we are going to be checking out the future of law enforcement, because you might say old Detroit has a problem, a cancer, and that cancer is crime. And I am today playing the part of OCP president. I'm not the old man here because Aaron's older than me, but I'm Mike the Birdman. I'm joined from the grand city where we're going to build Delta City in Kitchener, Ontario, Canada.
We are. Alex,
yes!
The producer.
That's right. And of course, we have the head of security concepts from Lansing, Michigan.
I'm Aaron Pollyea.
So yes, guys, we are going to be talking, if you haven't picked up on it yet, we're going to be talking about Robocop. And this was obviously... Mike, Robocop, you know I love it. But we were kind of chatting. We have this Facebook chat where we kind of spitball ideas and go back and forth on stuff. And I'm actually kind of surprised we've never done this sooner. We were talking about Robocop, the original versus the remake, because for a loose cannon that you should hear in probably a little while, we just compared Power Rangers 95 with Power Rangers 2017. And Robocop starts in 1987, and then the remake came out in 2014, I want to say. So we were kind of thinking, all right, well, why the hell not? I mean, Robocop has been a part of Twig since like literally 2007. Like at the end of every episode, you hear Peter Weller say, "Thank you for your cooperation. Good night." And it's just been one of those movies that has been with me literally since I was a child. So I'm going to give my little spiel how I got into Robocop, then I'll throw to you guys. So this is one of those movies I found in the 1980s. I wish I could remember precisely the first time I saw it, but I remember being so enamored by it. And I don't know whether it was just the over-the-top violence of it or the design of Robocop, but I think that's kind of what took me. It was a superhero who wasn't a Superman, he wasn't a Spider-Man, he wasn't a Batman. He was a guy who went out there and literally had those prime directives: protect the innocent, serve the public trust, protect the innocent, uphold the law. And then Directive 4, never act against a senior member of OCP. And it really took off with me. And it wasn't until I started recognizing it as cyberpunk satire cinema in the 90s, it started to take on a little bit of a different life with me. I saw Robocop 2, and I'm not afraid to admit this, that's one of the first movies to ever make me puke. And what I mean by that is where they did the brain surgery with Kane. I remember this so clearly. I was having a glass of water and eating ketchup chips. That was not a great decision on my behalf. My parents were not happy with me when they had to clean that up. And then I saw Robocop 3 in theaters, which I was really excited about.
Wasn't that just the pilot for the Canadian TV show?
It kind of felt like it, because that was like a different Robocop. That was was Paige Fletcher prime directives, or was...
the guy from The Hitchhiker?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. That's going to drive me crazy.
He might have been, I think he was the TV show.
Yeah. So it's always been a part of my life. And one thing I've never shared with on the show is I had this toy crossbow that looked like the Auto 9. So I took my dad's tools and I shaved off the crossbow I guess bow part, and I shaved down the toy pistol, or sorry, the toy hand crossbow to look like the RoboCop Auto 9. And I remember playing with that as a kid for many, many years. I actually eventually did get a really shitty airsoft version of the Auto 9. I don't know where it is, and I probably lost it during a move. But it's just been one of those big parts of my childhood. And then this last year, my sister-in-law, Kara, paid for me and Blair to go to Niagara Falls Comic-Con for my birthday. And I met Peter Weller face to face. I've got my photo taken with him, and I had a one-on-one with him to sign my Arrow 4K poster for it. And I remember going up to Mr. Weller, and I just said to him, I wanted to thank you for being a part of my childhood. Literally, Mr. Weller, you were the hero that I needed when I was a kid. You taught me to do the right thing, to always protect people, to serve the public trust. And now that I'm very much involved in advocacy and helping people, I feel that. And I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I cried in front of Mr. Weller, but I got a chance to shake his hand. And when he asked me what do I want to sign on my poster, he signed a personal message to me. And it meant a lot that I got a chance to meet my hero, because I never thought in 1,000 years I would meet RoboCop face to face. And
he doesn't do a lot of
conventions.
He doesn't.
No.
Since he went and was getting his doctorate in fine arts, he wasn't doing the con circuit very much.
No, I can only think of him doing it 3 or 4 times, but he's never been to any convention I've ever been to. And when my sister-in-law Karis said, hey, we're going to go see this, I got to meet him, Lou Diamond Phillips, which is kind of cool. But just to meet RoboCop, that was literally a dream come true. And then I randomly passed by Chris Jericho, which was kind of weird, and Jamie Kennedy. But yeah, it was kind of weird. So that's a lot of my history with like kind of RoboCop, other than collecting the toys, playing all the video games. I remember me and Alex went through hell and back to try and review RoboCop Rogue City when that game came out a couple of years ago. Totally worth it. Really, really great game. But yeah, it was utterly hell and back. So I guess I'm going to throw things to Alex. How did you get involved with the RoboCop property?
Well, it came out the year I was born, so I didn't see it in theaters. I also didn't know it existed right away. RoboCop to me was a cartoon. So I only knew like the Saturday morning cartoon. Mm-hmm. And then I think I saw like the TV edited version on City TV at nighttime. So that would be like the PG-13 version, I guess. Swearing edited out, most of the blood editing out, probably when I was about 9 or 10. Interestingly enough, where I watched the movie for the first time, like in its entirety and not compressed for television and completely uncut director's cut, was on DVD that I borrowed from the library.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is interesting enough because our library would have like adult movie sections, not like adult movie, like anything above PG-13.
Right.
And then they had a kids section, and they had VHS and DVDs to borrow in the late 90s. And my parents had put on they had gone to the library and got them to lift the child lock on my thing so that kids can only borrow kids movies. And they did that for me because I was like 10 or 11, but they were like, we know he knows the difference between right and wrong, what's real and what's not. And the library doesn't carry like horror movies, like anything really, really super extreme, but they did carry a lot of the Criterion collection.
Oh, wow.
So they would pick up whatever was considered culturally significant. So that generally meant like anything from Criterion would end up at the library. So they would have like all the like Shakespeare stuff, like all the classics that were put on there. And then that also happened to mean that they would put RoboCop there. And so my parents were like, you can, we don't care if it's rated R, if it's in the Criterion collection or in one of these collections that's considered significant. So, we don't care if he borrows it, basically. So they went to the library, told him he can borrow the adult stuff, had it all like signed a waiver. But the other meaning was so that they wouldn't have to go to the library themselves. They could send me and I could just use my library card to borrow for anything. Because there is like a limit back then. It was like 1 or 2 movies from the adult section, and then like 2 or 3 from the kids section you could borrow at the same time on one card. So they would just be like, all right, go pick out a few things. So I borrowed that. I to this day, I don't even think my parents, they might have seen Robocop fully in its entirety at some point, but I borrowed it for me. And I'm sitting there watching. I'm like, this isn't like the cartoon I saw. This is not like the cartoon I saw whatsoever. Because for the first time you're like 11, 12 years old and you're watching like Ed 209's demonstration on the uncut version, and it just blah, 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 blah. And I'm going, whoa, this is way different than the cartoon. But again, I wasn't like traumatized by it or anything. I was a fairly mature kid for that age. Like, should I have been watching it? I turned out okay. But I saw that, and then I had to go back and watch the second one and third one. And it was around, I think the TV show had been on like a few years earlier. So I knew of its existence and all that. But again, I thought that the TV show was like an adaptation of the cartoon. This is a very similar situation as to like me watching Toxic Crusaders, the cartoon, and then not knowing that it was based on Toxic Avenger till years later. So that's my background with it. In that I saw that. I don't think it was my first Paul Verhoeven movie.
Definitely mine for sure.
I hadn't seen what I've seen. I think I saw maybe. I think I saw Starship Troopers first because I know I saw that when I was 10 or 11. Mm-hmm. So I think RoboCop came when I was 12. So I didn't know the director's name, but I knew that the style was similar. When I watched it, I could tell that there was like the same person that made it. Mm-hmm. And I had seen Total Recall because my family, we had that on VHS, I think. Either that or we used to rent a lot of beta cassettes and then copy them to VHS because there was no macrovision protection between them back then. And my parents were given a Betamax player when they got married, and then they eventually bought a VHS. So there was no such thing as copy protection in our household. You would just rent one for one and copy it to the other. It's just how it was. So I don't know where we got it, but we had a copy of Total Recall on tape somewhere. So I'm sure I'd seen that. But yeah, like that's basically my background, was being very shocked as a preteen watching it.
And what about you, Aaron? How did you find RoboCop?
I found RoboCop on HBO after it was released, because, I might be the oldest here, but it was still released when I was like 10. And in general, that's not old enough to go see RoboCop in the theaters.
No.
But I came at this as like seeing it like reviewed on HBO or wherever it was, and seeing Peter Weller and going, oh my God, it's Buckaroo Banzai. Because I had already been hard into Buckaroo Banzai at that age. Right? Buckaroo Banzai came out 3 years before RoboCop did. I'm like, okay, well, I know it's not going to be like Buckaroo Banzai, but I really like Peter Weller. I like that guy. Okay, so I'll watch it. I hated it. And I think I grew up not liking, for at least a few years, RoboCop. And then I sort of got it. Maybe when I was 13, 14, I sort of got why it was good. And it wasn't because of the violence or the action. It was because of the satire, like the social commentary in it. And then it kind of clicked. Then I liked it. And then I went back and tried to watch RoboCop 2. And I was disappointed. Mm-hmm. And I tried to watch RoboCop 3, and I'm like, what's going on? What's happening?
Well, you've got the problem was Ed Neumeier has a good idea, but he needs that direction and eye for Paul Verhoeven. Paul Verhoeven is the king of dark satire.
Yeah, absolutely. So as time has gone on, I'm in my 40s now. I think RoboCop has continued to grow in my mind as a good film. It's continually gotten better and better. But like everything else in the franchise that I have watched or encountered is just a less and less shadow, a smaller shadow of what the original RoboCop was. And that's sad to say, but the original RoboCop is great. So I got into it on cable TV, and I'm glad I did. It just took me a while to really grip onto it.
And I think that makes sense because me watching it at like 11, 12, you're just at the age where you might start to think deeper into a movie. But for the most part, you see action go boom. That's all you care about when you're under the age of 13 or 14, for the most part.
Yeah. Like I'm like 11 years old watching a guy's face melt off, like,
yeah. And HBO was, I think, the uncut version. So
yeah. So I was like, what is, this is sick. This is yucky. It didn't make me feel, it made me feel sick watching it, or the guy just getting shot up by ED-209. Now watching the ED-209 scene today, I think that's actually funny, which is
within the context of the whole film, right? Obviously,
within the context, it's fantastic, right?
Because it's the innocent young guy who hasn't been tainted by the evil corporate world yet, is the one that gets wasted by the corporate world. And what does he land on? He lands on the model for Delta City, showing that ED-209 would eventually destroy their society they're trying to build.
Model is completely covered in blood, both literal and metaphorical.
Yeah. And there's like even a line that Dick Jones says to Bob Morton. He's like, I had a guaranteed contract with ED-209, spare parts for 25 years. Who cares if it worked or not? That is so corporate shenanigans, right?
Or even just there at the beginning, he's all shot up, and they're screaming, "Don't touch him," because they care more about liability than about checking to see if he's alive.
And then all the old man can say is, "I'm very disappointed."
Yeah, he's like, the only kind of humanity that the old man even has at all is he's like, you call that a glitch? Is that you see that he like legitimately is kind of disappointed. The thing that they ruined with him in the later films is they made him just as farcical and over the top evil.
Oh yeah.
And because in the first one, he is a sympathetic, like you feel like, yes, he's the head of a evil corporate entity, but that he himself, I don't know, somehow made it up there without being completely evil. He's just so high up that he's blind to what's happening.
Yeah, he failed upwards. He failed upwards, basically.
Yeah. And it's like kind of crazy because when you talk about him going into RoboCop 2, he's just as culpable as everybody else. It's all about lawyers and throwing Dr. Fax under the bus. And even in this, when you see Bob Morton played by Miguel Ferrier, he's like, he swoops right in as Mr. Kenny is splattered across Delta City saying, well, I got something else on the drawing board. And the old man, without missing a beat, well, I expect the full presentation in 20 minutes as they're peeling Mr. Kenny off of the model.
Like, he's like the only person that works for that company that wasn't evil. He was just naive. And maybe I forget the gentleman, the black guy with the glasses.
Roosevelt.
He comes across, I think, in each film as not being evil, just being opportunistic.
Yeah, exactly.
And then like who would have thought that the most sympathetic characters in a future dystopian world would be the police officers?
It's so crazy too, because like obviously without getting into like modern politics, things have changed drastically when it comes to privatization and militarization of the police forces. And while I'm watching RoboCop 1 the other night, again, I've seen this movie countless times, but now through the lens of current politics, I'm thinking, oh God, I don't like this. It's kind of horrifying
when they're saying that, cops don't strike. They're like, cops don't strike, but it's like, you think so? Because we're getting to a point where they might start to do that.
I was going to say, I think what helps the first RoboCop from '87 is that there is a lot of really good acting in it and really good chemistry on screen. I mean, between Peter Weller and Nancy Allen, there's actual chemistry there. They act off each other really well, and it draws you in.
And this is like the biggest picture that she ever did outside of Saturday Night Fever, right? So she came off of doing
and Carrie.
Those kind of roles. You're right. But again, she always played like a villain.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, it's Carrie. It wasn't Saturday Night Fever. It was that. Yeah.
Yeah.
she did a good job. The police captain was great. Like every cop in it, like from what we saw, at least in the first picture, there's no corrupt cops.
Yeah, they're all good people.
That it's like they seem to be like the only good people in old Detroit. Did they ever actually say? I don't know if the original script had what year it's supposed to be. Do they give a general idea?
I think I want to say maybe late
Like
90s into the 2000s, maybe.
To me, it made me think it's like now, like their vision of what 2025 would have been.
Yeah, it kind of feels like that near future. And that's kind of the beauty of this. It's almost timeless in a sense in that regard, because it's not nailed down to say this is 1999 or whatever. It's just near future, because there's enough future tech in there that isn't like, oh, that could happen, but it's not like laser pistols.
It reminds me of when the 50s would do a vision of the future and they would think of what the 90s look like.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And like this to me is very much what the 80s thought 2020 would be.
Yeah.
And with just the idea that, hey, we've got cars that still, guzzle gas, which we still do, but there's no hybrids or anything. Like they very much took like what was popular in the 80s and then just amplified it.
Yeah.
The idea of everything being on mini discs was interesting.
Now, there's one thought that I had while I was watching this versus the 2014 remake, and it's something that certain movies of this time period really nail. And you mentioned about chemistry. This movie has almost perfect, memorable side characters. You can name almost all the henchmen. You can identify them by who they are. Clarence Bodiger, played by Kurtwood Smith, is an iconic 80s villain. Dan O'Hurley, again, as the old man. Ronnie Cox as Dick Jones. Like, you can name everybody in here, but there's something else that I really noticed that the 2014 movie doesn't have. This movie has a soundtrack by composer Basil Pomadouris, and this movie has a sonic identity. You know the Robocop score. You know the sound of the Auto 9 machine pistol. When Robocop moves, he has that very distinct thunk, thunk.
Well, it's also the score is basically horns mixed with anvils hammered.
Yeah. Like, it's such an iconic soundscape. Like, literally, if I heard the Robocop foot stomp, I know exactly where that's from. And there's just so much about this movie that comes across as so memorable. And even the way that it's shot, like Paul Verhoeven and his director of photography gave this movie a visual identity that, like I said, despite the fact this movie was filmed in the 1980s, it's weirdly timeless.
It kind of looks like Detroit now.
Yeah.
like it sounds bad, but like they kind of predicted what it was going to be like, and it kind of just is.
Yeah, like it's kind of like weird and wild how this was just one of those things. And even when it predicts future technology with like the strange board games, like nuke them, get them before they get you. Or
no, but the trash TV, the I buy that for $1, and all the TV shows that are on are basically the reality TV shows we have now.
Oh yeah. And even in the beginning where they do this is media break. You give us 3 minutes, we'll give you the world. And there's a commercial for a doctor who's walking through the hospital talking about health insurance, but he's talking about, hey, have you talked about the Series 7 Sports Heart by Yamaha? And now we're entering an era in artificial limbs and artificial
we have an
organs.
artificial heart now for the first time.
Yeah, like we are really coming to the idea where parts of this are no longer going to be science fiction. I'm not saying we're going to have full body prosthetics, but still crazy.
In watching it now, I was watching it, I'm like, oh no. It's like, well, that's Fox News, and
yeah,
and like just this the way it's presented. I'm like, that's Fox News. That looks like any reality show on ABC or Fox. Anything that's airing, and just I don't know, the tone and everything. It's very, very on point and very eerie. The sequel was, we're not going into them really, but the sequel was, the issue they took was, hey, here's what we think worked with the first film, but not understanding why it worked, and then just amping it to the extreme where it becomes comically over the top. And then at that point, you've lost the message. The third film was rated PG-13 because they were trying to get a younger audience. And then I know that it led into the TV show because looking it up, half the actors were the same as the TV show.
And that movie sat on a shelf because it was completed for a year.
Yeah. So the TV show
wow.
sucked. And then they did the Prime directives, which I don't remember being any good.
It was
and
middling. It was mid,
so
very mid.
it sort of stagnates. What kept it alive basically was that first movie, the two cartoon shows that did well for kids, which is so unrelated when you think about it. And just the strength of that first movie, and then I guess the comic books for RoboCop versus Terminator, kept it sort of in the limelight a little bit. And then you fast forward to this new film in 2014, and I purposely didn't watch it because my uncle was working on it when they were filming it in Toronto. He was on the transportation crew, and they were making it. And I talked to him at Christmas, when after he was working on it. I said, "How is it?" And he goes, "Shit." That was the one word he gave. And I was like, "Why?" He goes, I said, "How can you tell?" He's like, he had already been working in the industry for 25 years. He's like, you can tell the first day on set if a production is going to turn out like crap just from how it's being run and the attitude of the people making it. And he's like, if the attitude is, let's just get this shit over with, then it's not going to be a good movie.
Yeah.
And that was the attitude was, it's a job. There was no passion from anybody on set.
I'm really glad you mentioned
I add
that,
one thing
actually.
about the first film.
Oh, 100%.
There is a novelization. I actually looked it up while you guys were talking. The novelization of the original film tells you the date.
Okay.
What year?
The film takes place between November 2043 and February 2044.
I never would have guessed that.
It's that far ahead. Okay.
Oh.
So there's time.
There's still time
great.
to get as shitty as it is, yeah.
But that actually, and it was written in the 80s, so it was written to be 60 years in the future.
Wow.
So
I would have
kind of
thought
like-
25 years, but yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't, it does feel like it should be that far ahead because of like ED 209 and the full body cybernetics and things like that. And then you go into the 2014 remake and it's supposed to be like only when it was released, like 14 years in the future.
And it looks like 100 years in the future or more.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like, it's crazy. Now, when you mentioned, Alex, this movie seems like there's no passion. That's a point I was going to bring up. Like, I went and saw this movie opening night in theaters. Obviously, I'm very excited to see it. I remember getting the toys for this. I requested it from the company specifically. And at the time, I'm like, it's fine. And I rewatched it again the other night with my friend Liam, who's a big RoboCop fan too. And I recognize a lot of the problems with this. I do see some interesting ideas in this that I think could have been salvaged, but weren't. There's no passion behind it. Joel Kinnaman, the guy who plays Rick Flag from the Suicide Squad movies.
And For All Mankind, like, he's a great actor.
He is.
He's given nothing to work with.
Yeah, he's not Alex Murphy. He's a Detroit police officer, and that's fine. It's just, you're not Peter Weller, and that's the biggest thing. If this had been another RoboCop side story, yeah, maybe, but it's just the fact I don't think this movie knows what it's trying to say. I think what it's trying to say is there a man inside the machine? Which in the other movie, it's a lot clearer when Murphy realizes, when Anne questions him in the hallway, Murphy, it's you, and the memories start to come back. Okay, cool. And when in the 2014 remake, when he starts solving his own murder, that's okay. That's kind of a neat idea, but there's no passion behind it. There's no part of what makes RoboCop 1987, I think, so good is it had a memorable cast of characters who had really great chemistry. In this one, hi, I'm Jay Baruchel. Hi. Hey kids, I'm Batman. I'm Mike Keaton. And
it's a lot of famous actors given nothing to do.
Yeah. Like in this one, like in the other one, Clarence Bodiger, that's Kurtwood Smith. He's a fucking villain. In this one, hi, I'm Jackie Earl Haley. Can you, honestly, without thinking too quickly, can you remember that character's name?
I don't remember any character's name.
Yeah,
wait,
exactly.
wait. I do remember that they gender swapped and race swapped Lewis.
Yeah,
and it was the good actor, but but in watching it, I was like, it's almost like they were picking specific aspects of the plot to alter on purpose so they could use that for their marketing campaign.
Yeah.
Not that it made sense to the plot.
Mm-hmm.
You
And
know,
I was like,
one of the things that I thought when I watched this was, since these actors have so little given to them, every single time they're like, I recognized there was a recognizable actor to me. I just kept thinking about the other things that they were in, like Joel Kinnaman. I'm going, oh man, For All Mankind, he's so good in that.
Mm-hmm.
Gary Oldman, he is so good in everything else.
I was going to say everything he's ever done.
Jennifer Eel, like she has kind of a smaller part in this, but I'm like, man, that's Pride and Prejudice, a TV series, and she was great in that. And that, I've only barely watched that. I've only watched that a couple times with Darlene. That's an older one, but like, she had a good part in that, and I recognized her.
Samuel L. Jackson's doing his best Samuel L. Jackson, which, I mean, you can't ever, he never gives it less than 110%. But again, what he's given is so one-dimensional.
I get the feeling they had him for a day. They gave him a rough idea on what he was supposed to say. Like, here's a few points I want you to hit. Go for it. Because there's just something about it that, yeah, it's Sam Jackson doing Sam Jackson, but it's not media break.
It's all in one room. It looks like it was all shot at once and they split it up.
Yeah.
This looks like, and there were like, in looking at the credits, I think there's 4 unit directors.
Mm-hmm.
So they filmed this piecemeal in like 4 different cities all at once, and then had to piece it together.
Yeah,
without a cohesive vision.
Now, it's funny because this was filmed in Hamilton, parts of it, and I'm recognized like, hey, I know where that is.
Yeah.
That's my pizza, stuff like that.
Hamilton, Toronto, I think out west in Vancouver, and somewhere else in the States.
Yeah.
And it was all, it looks like they were all shot at once, all with different directors, and then the editor had to splice it together. And that just, yuck. It's very rare that you have that many unit directors. Usually it's just a second unit. For some
very
shots.
forgettable. That's the problem.
Yeah,
like
one
thing
thing
is just very forgettable. And did you note the main writer really has very few credits? I think this was his first credit.
Oh wow!
Which I mean, good for you for trying, but like,
yeah, absolutely.
And they list Ed Neumeyer, but they list him
ideas inspired by sort of thing.
Probably like a consultant. It's just like put your name on it because you're the creator. Like there was, because if Ed was involved, you would know, because whenever Ed is let loose to do what he wants, it goes a little too over the top, but it's memorable.
Yeah.
So like when Ed worked on the Starship Troopers, and then I think he did Starship Troopers 3 Marauder, it's much too over the top with the satire, but like you can always tell when it's an Ed Neumeyer script, and this is not. This has nothing to do with it, other than the fact that it's RoboCop.
I mean, one of the things I noticed too, because again, I was talking about how the first movie has a audio identity. Here, they do play the RoboCop theme. I counted twice, maybe 3 times. Once during the movie itself, and one definitely in literally the last 30 seconds of the end credits as it just fades to black. But there's nothing identifiable. Even when RoboCop moves, it's not natural. It's weird. It doesn't sound like the boom, boom. And I know why they're not doing that. And even from a costume design and prop design, RoboCop, part of the reason why it's popular among people like me is it has iconic weaponry. The Auto 9 has been used in video games. It's been referenced in Call of Duty, Far Cry 3, Blood Dragon, all sorts of great movies. In this one, he's given a generic taser for some reason, and the RoboCop armor starts out silver, and then Michael Keaton's like, I want it in black. Okay, you want an identity? Cool, I get it.
No, you want it in black because it's easy to render on a computer.
That's another thing that somebody brought up too recently. Is like, why does it look like this? Because you're right. Everything looks like it was designed in the Apple laboratories out in California.
It's very, very sterilized. It doesn't look like the lived-in world of RoboCop. It doesn't
looks too new.
It doesn't look
green screened. Yeah,
RoboCop was all about being chunky and angular, and everything here screams iRobot to me. It just screams like there's nothing to it. I looked. The original writer and director team was fired from making the original team. The writer was the guy that wrote The Haunting, 13 Days, Road to Perdition, and Born Identity. Wow. And which could have been better, probably would have been better. And the original director was Darren Aronofsky.
I remember that. Yeah,
that would have been a very different movie, very, very different. It would have been probably. It wouldn't have been like a Paul Verhoeven movie, but it would have been very visceral and very disturbing. And I have a feeling that they got cold feet when they wanted to throw extra money into it. And they're like, we have to do something safe and sanitary.
Something that has to appeal to a wide audience, because this, I want to say, came out in February of 2014. And that month back then wasn't known for blockbuster movies. It wasn't until Deadpool that came out a couple years later where February started to realize, hey, you can put really good movies out here.
That's what I'm saying. I saw my uncle at Christmas and I was like, what is this shit? And I'm like, okay. He goes, just don't see it. And I was like, okay, because I was going to go for my birthday. And I was like, oh, I'll go, a week after my birthday or whatever to go see it. And he's just like, no, don't do that.
And one of the other things too is when they redesign shit, I get what they were going for with the Ed 209 variants, but for those of you that are video game fans, they look like the geckos from Metal Gear Solid 4 Sons of the Patriots. They look like someone had played Metal Gear before they made this movie, and it's honestly distracting. Like, there are very few memorable costume or weapon designs in this movie. When he gets his final Robocop costume and he's back in the silver, that looks okay. I don't mind that. But
it's too thin. I was bothered with how, the idea was initially
how nimble the character was.
Yeah.
Yes, because in the original movie, you had the ED-209, which is so iconic that countless video games from around the world have used its design for monsters and mecha and different things. And it's supposed to be smooth, angular. It's supposed to be more like the Apple product. And you think it would be smooth, but then it's just this chunky monster that has no grace and no finesse and no humanity. And Robocop is bumpy and he looks hodgepodge together and he doesn't look as sleek or as smooth, and he's a little chunkier than what a regular human would be, but he moves with the grace of a bird. And that was the whole idea, is that he moves like a bird, but with cat-like reflexes, just very smoothly. And in this new one, they completely flipped it upside down, and they made Robocop look too slick. He just looks too slick. It doesn't look believable. And then of course you can. The animation looks like crap. It costs $100 and some odd million, and yet they can't get green screens to look right. Like, this is from the bad era. Like, we're having a bad era now where they're spending crazy amounts of money and not getting results. But so between 2004 and 2014, unless you were a very select few films, the CGI was way overdone, and they to the point where they couldn't realistically put it. They're like, let's have a couple shots for the trailer that look good, and then the whole movie looks like crap afterwards.
Yeah, because I think Age of Ultron came out this year, did it not?
Probably, and all the big heavy hitters were doing that, and then I think there was probably something that Weta was working on. But you look at it, and it costs, they say, between 100 and 130 million. It's on the upper end, you can tell, and then there's no way it made its money back. Probably to this day.
After you go for marketing and things like that. Yeah, I think the number I'm seeing is around 250 million that it made. And no, it probably didn't make its money back.
Yeah, and I don't even remember much of an aggressive ad campaign. I remember a couple of TV commercials. I don't remember. I listened to a lot of US radio, and I don't recall any US radio advertising. I don't even remember that many posters.
I remember seeing the trailers all the time on YouTube.
Okay, so maybe that's where they must have focused most of their digital marketing. But yeah, it was never a presence. Even the toys, I had to get those sent to me. I never saw those on store shelves, not once. And that's not great. I mean, now, mind you, this is not a toy-centric film, but still, if you're going to produce a toy line, that's not an insignificant investment in something. And I don't know. There's just so much about this. Like I said, I like some of the idea. There's one line that I think was really interesting where Michael Keaton's character, I can't remember the name. That's how boring it is. So anyway, when fucking Batman says to him, when the visor comes down, that's the machine taking over. And then someone says to him, well, then who's making the decisions? He's like, well, that's the beauty of it. It's a machine that thinks. It's Alex Murphy. There's nothing left of him there. And then when they start messing with his emotions and chemicals to make him like a robot or whatever, I'm thinking, there's something interesting there, and you fucked it up because you never explore it long enough. It's just like, hey, we need him to go kick a kid's ass who's doing a drug deal, or we need him to do this awesome biker scene where he randomly has a guy blow himself up with a grenade. Hope he wasn't having any evidence that might be important. So they drop the ball because it doesn't say anything.
And we're probably gonna have to at some point finish up the trifecta, because we've done 2 so far that we hated the sequels to, and that the best, or best I say in quotes, of the terrible remakes would be the Total Recall remake from a couple of years earlier,
which I've never seen either, actually.
Which
was also filmed in Hamilton.
That's also one that my uncle worked on. It was like a 1-2 punch, and it was Colin Farrell at a time when I wasn't watching anything he was in because I didn't care for him as an actor. He's grown on me in recent years.
Now, did you know we have a twig connection to that movie?
Well, I know a lot of it was filmed in Guelph and the University of Scarborough and a bunch of other stuff.
One of our former hosts accidentally walked onto the set of that movie and got into a shot and got yelled at. Mike Laidman had told me a story from the Mike and Laura project from one of our old podcasts many years ago, how he walked onto the set of Total Recall and got screamed at. He's like, what do you mean? What's going on? And I thought that was kind of a funny story. He's like, wow, the production was so incompetent, somebody just walked onto the set.
When my brother Andreas was living in New York doing his internship at Google, he was walking downtown listening with his headphones, one ear in, because you're in Manhattan, you don't want to not be aware of your surroundings. And he walks, it suddenly gets like no crowd around him, and he's like, oh, it's weird, I guess everybody must be inside. And he gets screamed at, and it was Arnold Schwarzenegger's personal security because he was visiting some building.
Oh.
And it was when he was still governor, and he was visiting something in New York, and they're like, get the fuck out of the way, you're what the hell are you doing here? They closed the area, and he just wandered in, and he's like, oh shit. And yet, like, that was still, big security risk, big issue. And yet nowadays, like 6 months ago, Arnold was filming locally here, like at the Elora Gorge for his TV show, and people were just wandering up and like talking to him. So it's like, wow, times have changed. But yeah, like that doesn't surprise me that you just wander onto that set, and that tells you just how poor the overall closed set was. Mm-hmm. That people could just wander in. If it's a proper movie set, you've blocked off the areas, nobody can get in. So that we'll see. We'll have to talk about that. I think we should, just to get it over with and watch it. But like, there was that era where we were getting a lot of terrible remakes of 80s movies and 90s movies. So, I feel like we're shitting on it a lot, but it's because like it kind of deserves it. It's really, there's nothing redeeming about the 2014 movie.
It's very mid,
entirely forgettable in my opinion.
Yeah,
I watched it 2 days ago. I don't remember what happens other than Samuel L. Jackson is like Sean Hannity.
Yeah. Like, for me, I've got a very good memory for this type of stuff. My biggest problem is it doesn't say anything memorable, despite having a wonderful cast. As you guys have mentioned, they're given nothing to work with, and not having a memorable, like having all these wonderful characters, or sorry, these wonderful actors, but no memorable characters. That's a problem. And again, this movie has no sound identity. And again, Basil Pomodouros gave RoboCop such an iconic score and sound to it. You know exactly what it is. Like, even just hearing little bits of the RoboCop theme here, nothing. They give you a taste of member berries, and then that's it. Like,
the rest is very stock. Everything felt stock.
Yeah.
Everything felt like they went to like the Sony Music Library, or they went to like a stock music library, stock sound effects. Even the animations and the compositing looks like they went to like school 101. How do you make some basic geometric shapes for all the things that they need? Everything felt piecemeal of how can we make this as cheap as possible, even though we've got $150 million budget. So it's rough. Like, if the first movie had a message,
Mm-hmm.
and the message was like they were turning a mirror on the consumerism of Reaganomics.
Yeah.
Right at its peak.
Well,
Of
making money is more important than people's lives.
making money is more important than people's lives, and the idea of we're not going to solve crime. We're not going to uplift people out of poverty and out of issues and solve crimes. Where our solution is more
Monetize
firepower,
it.
Yeah.
more firepower with less manpower. It was their solution, and there was the satire aspect of the cynicism of you can appease the masses with cheap television shows to make them forget. And this movie, this remake, the message, if it has one, is don't trust the media because they'll spin it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
guess.
that's the strongest message. I mean, even when it comes down to Murphy's quest to regain his humanity, it's so buried and it doesn't really come out until the last like 10, 15 minutes.
Regain his humanity. He had it right at the beginning.
Yeah, like it's when they suppress all his stuff and he starts to come out of it and he solves his own murder and like again, and then having the cops be corrupt in this, like having
That's the big problem. Is
yeah.
that the first one, it showed that there were the people that were still trying to make the world a better place happened to be the police officers, happened to be the peace officers. And it was everybody else around them that was up against them. And it was like, if you showing you that yes, the one guy was like, fuck it, we'll strike. And they're like, and the captain's like, no, we're police officers. We do not strike. You get out there, we work for a living. You're here to protect and serve. That's what you do. You protect everybody. And in the new one, it was just like, well, there's no good people. His wife, is that it? Like, what was the point of it? The point was to like show off Apple shiny graphics. That was it.
Yeah, like there's nothing redeeming and it's so disappointing. Now there is supposed to be a RoboCop TV show developed by Amazon MGM, and as of this recording, these guys just recently got a hold of the James Bond license. So they're getting a lot of IPs. Like they gained something like, I think Alex, when we did our story, they've got something like 17,000 films and a bunch of IPs that they can just pull from.
Yeah, when they completely purchased MGM and absorbed everything in the MGM library and Orion and I think 2 or 3 other companies.
Yeah, so maybe it'll be halfway decent. I think Peter Weller says he definitely wants to be involved. I mean, he did the voice in RoboCop Rogue City, but when I met Mr. Weller, he's getting on in years.
He's looked and sounded kind of frail for like 20 years.
Yeah,
He was always a fairly thin guy, but like even when he did Fringe like 12, 15 years ago, he was already looking old when he did that episode.
Yeah, I mean, in the darkness, he doesn't look great either.
So I mean, not that I'm not trying to judge him. Who knows what his health is, but like he is of a more advanced senior age. He's getting closer to 80, I think, than he is to 70.
Yeah. So hopefully this franchise continues to get treated well, at least in other forms. I think there's still comic books going on. Like I said, RoboCop Rogue City is a wonderful video game. Please pick it up.
I wouldn't be surprised if another game comes out. Like he could still do the voice.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
It's just his natural voice in a calm manner, right? Like he doesn't have to be excitable at all. So you can totally do it. It's all about getting the emotion and just in the quiet moments.
Yeah. And honestly, it's got a really great story. It ties into everything. The old man literally gets turned into RoboCop 2. And the bad guy in that is Emil's brother, the guy who got liquefied in the toxic waste. It's really cool. So,
oh wait, we forgot to mention again some of the character actors. It was a who's who. Like, you don't necessarily know all of their names, but the guy who played Emil was in a whole bunch of movies from that era.
ER.
And don't forget, that I think that was Ray
Ray
Wise's
Wise,
first
yep.
big movie.
Mhm.
And I don't know the gentleman that plays the craziest one of all is the
Joe?
black dude.
Yeah, Joe. Yeah, Joe.
Where he, does it hurt? Does it hurt? Like it's. I think what was missing. My final thoughts on RoboCop 2014.
Mhm.
It was. Sounds weird to say it. It was missing the cruelty. You almost needed the contrast. You needed something like the bad guys are bad guys in it, but they're not cruel for the sake of their own sadistic needs.
Yeah, they just want to make money, and that's it.
Like the motivation was money. The motivation for Bodiger was money, but the motivation for a lot of the others was they were psychopathic.
Yeah, and they want power, control, and everything.
And like they just found joy in hurting others, and that wasn't in this one. Like they weren't willing to go dark in the new one, and that was I think was missing.
Yeah, I would say that too. So, Aaron, what are your final thoughts?
My final thoughts are that there's like one RoboCop movie, and then a couple the two movies that happened after it, like 2 and 3. There's some ideas in it that you can try to tack into your memory, your general memory bubble of RoboCop, but like at first RoboCop is so good, and it grows on you because of the interesting details in it. And when you remake it and make it the worst possible, most boring, dull, bland production possible, it really does a disservice to the entire franchise.
Yeah,
yeah.
I would definitely
What would have
agree with
worked?
you on that.
RoboCop 3's whole idea of Japan making their own RoboCop made
Otomo,
sense.
yeah.
Made sense in the era. If you wanted to update some of the ideas for the second and third movie scripts into a modern era, what you would do is you'd have China reverse engineering it to make their own, and it fucks everything up because everything that China tries to make on their own fucks up in some way. They can't seem to make their own product. Everything is a duplicate or a copycat. So there's elements there that you could use if you wanted to do a modern RoboCop, where it's like the RoboCop that is designed in labs in like proper facilities in the West works, and maybe ED-209 is offshored to China, and then it all fucks up because like they skimped on some of the programming, or some of the logic boards is just cheaper and it overheats and doesn't work. Like there are so many things you could do with OCP. Maybe their incompetence is due to the fact that they do everything overseas to save money. Like that was one thing that wasn't explored, because at the time that the first 2 to 3 movies were made, we hadn't really offshored most of our labor force yet. Things were still actually made here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a really cool idea.
There's things you could do where it's like they're like, why is it all going haywire? It's like it should be fine. It's like, well, because they didn't follow safety protocols. They didn't follow, they're using, you're supposed to use this type of let's say specific
conductor or something.
Conductor or the non-volatile memory isn't working right because they were cheap and it's not shielded properly, so that's why it's fucking up, or it's easier to hack, or they left the back door in. There's so many things you could do, but instead they just sort of went with like the laziest, lowest common denominator way of doing it. But we'll see. We'll see what happens, because I do think it's a property you could go back to if you have somebody really thoughtful take an approach to it.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's something I want to see done well, but if I'm only left with the one from 1987, well, I would buy that for $1, and I'm definitely grateful for it. So, guys, really thank you for allowing me to indulge in this. I'm really glad we got a chance to do it.
Okay.
I really hope.
I hate you for making me watch this.
I'm curious to watch the Total Recall remakes, because it's not my favorite Verhoeven movie, but now that like I said, I've learned a lot from you, Aaron, and Ken and Dave. I'm looking at movies a lot differently now than I did 5 years ago. So definitely want to go back and see if I can find something interesting in there. So that's going to do it for this edition of Future Imperfect, as we're all going to, go out on the picket lines with the rest of the force from the Detroit Police Department. So we will be back here on Future Imperfect. What's the next topic going to be? I'm not sure, but we will let you guys know during the regular shows that air on Mondays. So we will go from there. So for Future Imperfect from the great city of Lansing, Michigan, we have been.
I'm Aaron.
From the more interesting city than Guelph anyway, from Kitchener, Ontario.
Thank you for that, I guess. That's Alex, the producer. I think we're probably a little more interesting. Maybe.
It's true. And I've been Mike the Birdman saying, thank you for your cooperation. Good night.
Robo, excuse me, Robo. Any special message for all the kids watching at home?
Stay out of trouble.
Nice shooting, son. What's your name?
Murphy.
Computer, this is Captain James Kirk of the USS Enterprise. Destruct sequence 1, code 1, 1A.
Computer, initiate the self-destruct sequence. Authorization Janeway Pi 110.
Computer, this is Captain Benjamin Sisko. Initiate auto-destruct sequence. Authorization Cisco Alpha 1 Alpha.
Begin auto-destruct sequence. Authorization Picard 47 Alpha Tango.
Self-destruct in 15 minutes. There will be no further audio warning.
My lord, the ship appears to be deserted.
How can that be? They're hiding.
Yes, sir. But the bridge seems to be run by computer. It is the only thing speaking.
Speaking? Let me hear.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5.
Get out!
3,
Get out of there! Get out!
1.